Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Heartland Mama's special bonus edition. I'm Murray Briel.
I'm Heidi Henry, and today we ventured further into the Great Red Divide, Murray.
Up to Iowa to meet Andrew Yang.
We did. We went to an Andrew Yang event at a little coffee house in Davenport. We have a little sign that we brought back, and it was a really good talk. The place was packed.
It was a great venue. There were many people there, excited for Yang. Also, lots of people just wanting to learn more about him, wanting to be a part of the caucus, knowing who to vote for.
Well, Iowa going first with their caucus, the people of Iowa put a lot of responsibility on themselves to get to know everybody. So they attend every single candidate's events. And this is like, they take this job so seriously, you know?
They really do. I have yet to meet Iowans that aren't involved and active and going to meet the candidates.
They're just so into it, and so trying to be responsible and really proud of the fact that they go first.
Absolutely. So we went up, we've seen several candidates, and this was our first chance together to see Andrew Yang.
Yeah.
He talked we actually were in the back of the Andrew. We were part of the Yang gang with the signs. I don't know how that ended up happening.
If you see...
He loves the Heartland Mamas, by the way. Thank you, Andrew Yang. We love you, too.
We really do. And, we were there really early because we understood it was a sold-out event, and they were planning overflow space and advising people to go to another event today. So we got there super early so that we could get a good place to sit or stand. And then we were invited up to be, sign holders behind Andrew Yang, which was really exciting. We've never gotten to do that before. So we did. And, of course, I get really into it. So I'm like, whoa! As usual.
So he's focused on the usual Andrew Yang policies, economic, how we will monetize the automation that is occurring and how that will benefit the nation, how we need to focus on
the fourth industrial revolution, as
absolutely
he calls it,
which is the reason we had someone ask some questions on Twitter, so we hope you're tuning in. The reason that I find him appealing is because everything we do is reactionary. Even in the most progressive of presidential, even administrations in the last 25 years, it's all been very reactionary.
Murray, we haven't had a real forward thinker as president since FDR.
We haven't had a Office of Technology for 25 years. They shut it down in the government. Everything is behind.
If they ever restart it and Andrew Yang is not the president, he should be the head of the Office of Technology. Please, dear God,
So he made some really great points, and someone brought up the healthcare issue. So we delved in a little bit deeper with that.
Right, because his stance on his page, the headline reads, he's in favor of Medicare for all. And he is. I think where he comes from is it's just a little different way to get there than Bernie's plan. So I think we have a lot of candidates that are on the Medicare for all train or single payer train. It's just how you get there. The paying for it is the same. But I'm going to let Murray detail the differences that she found today.
So he is on board, and it's not even as much of a concern of how we're going to pay for it, because as he points out, if we have to start focusing on humans and consider that success rates as opposed to bottom lines, because governments are not supposed to be run like corporations.
Right.
That's not how this works. So,
you do not want businessmen as your politician, because they don't think about for the people, they think about for their pockets.
And so he understands that's where we need to be. Yeah. He wants to get to that point. But the reason it looks confusing on his site and the things that he says is he's talking about the immediate action.
What you can do by executive order.
By executive order, things that can be changed very quickly within the legislation. And when you see those policies developed and that plan, it makes complete sense.
Right.
These are things he can enact within the first 100 days that will prevent people from losing health care, that will get rid of junk plans, that will drop prescription costs. that will change it to outcome-based results. These are things that aren't legislatively necessary to start doing and help the American people. So his plan is absolutely, but right now we need to fix it. We can't have a 3-year debate to get healthcare passed. People need it now. So that's the confusion, I think.
Trump buying into what's going on in Texas and putting the entire Department of Justice, U.S. Department of Justice, on blowing up what's little is left of the ACA and what's harming people immediately. We don't have an ACA to build from anymore. And if it gets to the Supreme Court, it will be completely overturned. Tens of millions of people will be without health care. So what we read today when we read into it deeper is that these are the things that he can do by executive order or by shoring up the current legislation with the ultimate goal of Medicare for all. So yeah, not identical to Bernie, but he does support Bernie's plan.
And I think that knows that it needs to happen immediately.
The ideology is the same. It's just instead of turning right at this corner, you'll turn right at the next corner. And I should never say right because I don't make right turns. Left and left. But it's just the ideology, the philosophy of every Democratic presidential candidate out there, every single one of them, is to get the people all covered with decent, good, affordable health care, to get health care for everyone. And sometimes the pathways are different, but those of you that decided to call us out on comparing plans have to understand that Medicare for all doesn't happen in a vacuum. It has to go through both houses. It will go through committee. It will be debated. It will be changed. It will be augmented. It will be disintegrated and built back up again until it gets to whatever president we have.
It's not going to be something that can be done immediately.
It's not, we have a wand up here for some reason. It's not going to be
Harry
Medicare
Potter
for
can't.
all. You can't
Expecto
do that.
Patronus.
Right.
It's Medicare for all.
It's never going to happen like that because that's not how our government works. We are not electing an omnipotent wizard as much as DJT thinks he is one. And where we get into problems in this country is when we try to do things like that instead of doing it through the due process, which is part of our legislative process. And we don't have, even if we elect Bernie Sanders, we don't haven't elected a progressive Congress. It won't matter.
And if we don't flip the Senate, none of this matters.
Yes. So we have to pick up 3 seats in the Senate. We have to hold the House, and
we have to take whomever is the candidate and support them.
Right.
So that brings us to some of the folks that we met today and we talked to.
Because Murray and I are of like minds that we're so excited about so many of the candidates, not because of their differences, because of how they approach things. We've tried to be of a real open mind to see where does their plan take this country. And we see Yang as a very forward-thinking person.
Progressive, not reactive.
Right. When both of us ran for office, I ran on a platform saying, for the state of Illinois that I ran for Senate in, we need to stop being reactionary. We need to start planning 5 years out, 10 years out, 20 years out, 100 years out, because as our politicians have done in Washington and in Springfield, we are always mopping up a mess instead of planning to avoid messes.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about some of the people we met.
So when we said, support anyone, no matter who, we did meet, Heidi particularly met a gentleman who was very much committed to, if it's not Andrew Yang, I am not voting.
Yes.
So that
I met a couple people like that.
She met a couple people like that. And that's one of the things that we do as the Heartland Mamas is we find out not just our impressions, but we ask what other people are thinking. So you actually get a real person's perspective who is there.
Not ours. I mean, we're pretty fluid in the moment, but they're always, and we have found this with primarily in Bernie supporters and Yang supporters, it's an absolute ideology. It's this way or no way. And we don't really see that with Klobuchar supporters, Biden supporters, Warren supporters. It's just like those two candidates have brought people into voting that have never been
into the process, gotten
before.
them excited. And it takes a while to adjust to what
Yeah.
the political process in the United States
It's like
needs.
if you are just a super Pantera fan, is Pantera still around?
I don't know.
I don't know. And maybe you don't like, name somebody really current.
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know. Justin Bieber, you really hate him. So you'll only listen to Pantera. God, I would rather listen to Pantera than Justin Bieber. Just me. Just kind of a metalhead, you know? But, you know, I don't look like it. But back in the 70s, baby. You know? Sorry. But the thing is that voting is not like picking music that you like, a genre of music that you like. These people are running for nomination in the Democratic Party, which means that they have to hold views and values of the Democratic Party as their first thought. Okay? Yeah, Medicare for all is a hot button issue, and there's a lot of different pathways to get there, but all roads lead to health care. All roads lead to health care. Andrew Yang puts a little extra in with his universal basic income, and other candidates have other things that are their little thing that they like.
That they emphasize.
Yeah.
Oh, and my freaking mic died.
No. So we're going to pause this.
Oh. So when you talked to this Yang Gang fan
yeah.
who is Yang or bust,
Right.
how did that conversation go? Because I didn't get to talk to anybody.
Well,
like that.
he has felt very disenfranchised with the entire political process all of his life, and he was 36 years old and had never voted before. So he said Andrew Yang brought him into the process, and we saw that a lot with Bernie supporters in 2016.
Yes.
People who were not part of the process before, didn't feel or hear the message, or felt it was too much of their parents' party. Right. And I have to say, I'm old enough to be that young man's mother, you know, and my son was very much a Bernie bro in 2016, and he ended up voting for Clinton because he is also a Democrat and understands that the process was so important in 16. And I think when I talked to Bob, I said to him, well, what will you do if Andrew Yang doesn't primary through? And he said, I'm out. And I said, I'd like you to rethink that position because our democracy is at stake. This is a serious time.
If you are thinking along those lines and you tuned in because you saw it's a gang review, or you are a Bernie bro, or any candidate that you believe is the most important candidate, please look in yourself and realize that most of them, all of them, share similar ideologies, and they're
all Democrats,
are so much farther ahead than where we are now. We cannot afford to take our ball and go home.
We can't.
We have to fight. We have to fight, like we've said, to keep the House, to win the Senate, and to remove the orange menace at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
We're at the brink of World War III, literally, because some people did pick up their toys and go home, and maybe felt like the world deserved that because their candidate didn't primary through. The reality is that our democracy doesn't work that way. It has never been a bunch of absolutes.
And I would encourage anyone who got engaged in the political process because of Bernie in 16, and you stayed active and engaged through the general, or maybe you came back to politics after the general. Regardless, you stayed in the process, and now you're fighting for the candidates that you like, and you're a little more open-minded. Please share that. Share that experience. Share that with others who are new to the process. You guys are the best leaders we have.
Well, I'm going to use my husband, a Chicago Bears fan, as an example. The Bears are out. He's no longer watching football.
There you go.
He won't even watch the Super Bowl because his team is out. You can't do that for the presidential race. You have to, it's like the grid that they do. What do they call that when they have, like, there's 16 teams on this side and 16 on the other, and they get down so it's just a Final Four.
March Madness?
Well, like March Madness. But you know how, if Villanova's out, you decide that you're a big Carolina fan. Sorry. I come from a long line of basketball loving people. So you just keep picking your favorites until, we're in the finals, right? It's in some ways unfortunately, our favorite teams don't make it through, and sometimes our favorite presidential candidate doesn't make it through. I've met a few more than Murray. They're all worthy except for one. All of the Democratic candidates that are out there are all worthy people. They bring a different flavor to the table. They bring a slightly different way of speaking, but the ideology of being a Democrat is very much the same, person to person to person to person. You can't discount that, and you can't pick at little verbiage and say that means they're out. They one time took money from so-and-so. They are out. You got to work within this party structure because it's all we got.
It's the system that we have right now, and we have to work within
Yeah.
it, but we can do it.
And we're
that
never-
brings me
Yeah.
to another gentleman that I talked to. He was a young man. He had just gotten out of the Navy in November.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He was an Iowan, and he had grown up his dad's a farmer in a farming rural community.
Mm-hmm.
And he thought that Republican was the only thing that there was, or
I
that's
told
what
you,
he was
Murray,
supposed to
I
be.
was raised by Republicans.
It's about access to information as well. It's about exposure to different worlds. He went into the Navy, and it opened his eyes. He
see the
saw
world.
the world from a different point of view. He met new people. He gained new information, and he's home, and he's a Democrat. Now, he's not sure if he's a Warren,
A Yang, a Bernie.
no, it was Warren, Yang, or Biden. So there was quite a variety across the board, but those were the ones that had the most appeal to him. And he said it feels lonely because his family doesn't understand. Those that have stayed in that community don't understand. And he really wants to help educate others. So big shout out to Matthew. It was amazing to talk to this, young 20s man who is exploring the world of politics and getting involved for the first time. And we talked about this exact thing. Whoever you get behind, if they don't, will you, because he's met all of them, how are you going to do it? And he's like, oh, well, that I want to just push through, and we need to get whoever elected.
Long-term progressives like myself, and we didn't have a candidate like Bernie back in the day. We have worked so hard for the last, I don't know how many years I've been voting, about 40, to change things so that it's possible to have a Bernie. It's possible to have a Yang. It's possible to have a Warren.
We would not have be even entertaining Bernie or Elizabeth Warren this cycle, and Bernie or anyone who had any sort of a governmental health care plan. We would not even be entertaining that today if we had not done Obamacare. For all of its faults, we would be still back trying to get anything.
I'll go one step further. We wouldn't even have gotten to the ACA if Hillary Clinton, when she was first lady, hadn't pushed so hard for universal health care, and why she was vilified for 30 years, because she dared to take profit from insurance companies.
Mm-hmm.
Heaven forbid you sell out the, corporate dogs. So, we also met an amazing young girl named Abby. Abby was one of those kids that makes you know that the world's going to be okay.
We were on our way home, and we stopped off, and
this was the girl that was at the Yang
Abby.
thing.
Oh,
Abby.
yeah.
Abby was only 12, but she's been out there meeting all the candidates and asking them really difficult questions and getting really complex answers because as a young 12-year-old not environment activist, she's really putting herself out there and making herself notice. So, but then on the way home,
we met the most amazing young woman. We are going to bring her into the studio. She's exactly the demographic that I've been telling Heidi our future is in good hands. It is the mid-20 to late teens generation. I'm not sure where that falls or what the name of it is.
It's Marjorie Stoneman Douglas era kids.
They are on point. They are smart. They are
Young
understanding
activists.
of not even just not even activists, but they understand how it works and they want to see change and they will vote. And
Yeah.
it's an amazing thing.
They're not gonna
We're going to
take
talk to some of those kids.
the good old boy Republicans anymore. They're over it. They're completely over it. They've educated themselves to the point where they're not falling for it anymore.
So our final thoughts. I'd like to have a couple final thoughts about meeting Andrew Yang.
Charming.
Great guy, funny, intelligent. Enjoyed his presentation. Enjoyed meeting him. He likes the mamas, so shout out again. Thank you for liking the mamas, Andrew Yang. And but there was also something that I noticed. Now, going to lots of different events, you see all kinds of campaign flyers, posters, etc. What disappointed me significantly when we saw Joe Biden was that he did not have a union bug on the papers he was giving out on his printed information.
See,
Andrew
that's
Yang had a union bug on
right there,
the sticker,
yeah,
on the poster, on the bumper stickers, and more importantly, on his sign-in sheets, where people signed in with their information for the Iowa caucus. Are you considering It had a union bug. He's using union paper and union printers and not even printing it off of a computer. So I mentioned that to his campaign manager, and he's like, absolutely. He backs labor 100%. So
those
Mr.
of us
Union
from
Joe Biden did not, or his campaign didn't think about that, which is an unforced error.
We
and
see
shout out Andrew Yang for labor support.
We see a lot of candidates, and we know what it's like to run out of lit when you're in the middle of stuff. You have to plan better than that. You have to know, and the reason this is so important is union labor. My husband was an IBEW guy, supported my family, fought for my husband after he was in a horrific accident at work, made sure he still had a job when he came back to work. Her family, her dad raised her.
Union girl, IBEW.
Yeah. And Murray and I have been very outspoken about fighting for our labor unions, that our country works best when labor unions are full, active, supportive,
and
involved.
We've been critical of the Obama administration for the way that they've handled
my
labor
God.
and the setbacks that they did to it.
Yes.
So for us, the labor issue is important, perhaps not to everyone, but for us it is. And to see a candidate, and so many who are Democrats will forget that or not plan to have those sheets, and it helps that he has the money, but the fact is it was important enough to him to demand that his campaign did it this way.
Yeah.
And that tells me a lot.
Well, it tells me he's really good at planning.
Well, it tells me he's good about planning, but it also tells me that it's the same thing when Governor Pritzker did the women's lunch.
Oh, yeah.
So Governor Pritzker did the Persist, Insist, Resist luncheon for women before his election, or before that election. And he gave, it was a great luncheon. Gillibrand was there, and it was awesome.
Julianne Stratton.
Gillibrand.
Oh, was she?
Yeah,
okay.
she was there.
Sorry, missed that.
But
I didn't go.
The thing is all the shirts that we were given were women's cut. Now, it doesn't seem like a big deal, right? A women's cut shirt. But it is very rare that you can get a women's cut. You have to look specific, and it never happens in politics. It's just a T-shirt.
The big, boxy man cut shirt. Ugh.
And the fact that we were at a woman's event, and it didn't feel pandering, it felt thoughtful. It felt conscious. And I promise you, every woman that I heard chatting at tables or bathroom made some comment about it being a woman cut. That he actually thought, or someone in his administration thought about it.
Yeah.
And this is why it gives me, especially because of his technology background, that he backs labor so strongly. I gotta say, big props, Andrew Yang. Big props.
So, takeaway from today, we were, as always, impressed. I mean, I really felt that he won the last two debates, with Tom Steyer coming in a close second. And I know you felt the same way too, because we're progressives, and that means we're forward thinking. We're always thinking of our future, and I think Andrew Yang sees this in a a way that very few of us can. Part of it is that thinking critical brain. Critical thinking is not taught in schools anymore, and it's something that either nowadays you have to almost be born with it because they're not going to teach you critical thinking.
Or someone who thinks critically gets a hold of some kids and teaches them that.
Critical thinking is so huge. So that's why we really enjoyed it today. I'm glad we drove out there today. We are not going out to see any more candidates until a big Davenport event here in a few weeks. But we wanted to give you a wrap.
The mamas have not endorsed anyone.
No.
We do not have a
Purposefully
particular candidate.
Yeah.
We are giving you what we get on the ground, our impressions, and hoping
that's why we go to all this. We go to all this work to meet these people, so you don't have to.
So, like, subscribe, share, donate. We have a donation button on Heartland Mamas.
MAMAS.com.
You can subscribe to us, and we appreciate all your help because it helps us bring you what we can.
Thank you so much.
We'll see you soon.
Take care now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.